My phone buzzed in my lap just as Vanessa handed me that cup of chamomile tea, her smile stretched a little too tight across her face. The message preview lit up my screen, and my heart dropped straight through the floor. Carter, grandson. Grandma, don't drink the tea, they put something in it. I looked up at Vanessa, still holding that cup out to me with both hands like she was presenting something precious. Behind her, Terrence was watching me from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, that same fake concerned expression he'd been wearing for weeks now. Go on, Mama, he said. Vanessa made it special for you. Help you sleep better. My hand trembled as I reached for the cup. I could feel my grandson's eyes on me from somewhere in the hallway. Sweet Carter, only 10 years old, and already braver than any of us. I wrapped my fingers around that warm ceramic, and just as Vanessa started to smile for real, I let out the biggest cough I could manage. My whole body jerked forward, and that tea went flying, splashing across Vanessa's cream-colored carpet, soaking into the fabric like a confession. "Oh, Lord," I gasped, pressing my hand to my chest. "I'm so sorry, baby. Must have swallowed wrong." Vanessa's face went from concerned to furious in half a second. She looked at that stain spreading across her pristine floor, and something ugly flashed in her eyes. "Terrence," she hissed, not even trying to hide her anger anymore. "Get the carpet cleaner, now." As they rushed around, whispering sharp and angry to each other, I caught a glimpse of Carter in the hallway shadows. My sweet grandson was holding up his tablet, recording everything. When our eyes met, he nodded once, then disappeared into his room. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about my house anymore. This was about survival. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me tell you how I got here, sitting in my own son's house, afraid to drink a cup of tea. My name is Willa Mae Washington, and I'm 72 years old. For the past 40 years, I lived in the most beautiful little house you ever did see on Peachtree Street in Atlanta. 3 bedrooms, wraparound porch, garden out back where I grew tomatoes and collard greens. My late husband, Franklin, and I raised Terrence in that house. We paid off the mortgage in 2003, every single payment made on time. Franklin passed 3 years ago. Massive heart attack, right there in our living room during the 4th quarter of a Falcons game. He went quick, which the doctor said was a blessing, but Lord knows it didn't feel like one. We'd been married 47 years. You don't just bounce back from losing half your soul. For the first year, I barely kept it together. The church ladies from Greater Hope Baptist brought casseroles and sat with me on Sundays. My best friend Juanita came by every Wednesday for coffee and to make sure I was eating. Terrence called once a month, maybe, always saying he was too busy with work to visit from Charlotte. That was fine. I understood. He had his own life, his own family. But then the visits started. First, it was Terrence showing up alone last Thanksgiving. "Just wanted to check on you, Mama," he said. But his eyes were moving around the house like he was taking inventory. He asked about my finances, whether I was managing okay. I told him the truth. Franklin's pension and my Social Security covered everything just fine. "But what about repairs?" he pressed. "This house is getting old, Mama. What if the roof needs work? What if the furnace goes?" I told him the same thing I'd been telling myself. I'd handle it when the time came. Christmas, he brought Vanessa and Carter. That's when things started feeling strange. Vanessa walked through my house touching everything, making little comments. "This wallpaper is so vintage. These floors must be hard to keep clean. All these stairs. Aren't you worried about falling?" I smiled and served them my pecan pie, the one Franklin used to love, and tried not to let it bother me. But Carter, sweet baby, he stayed close to me the whole visit. Helped me in the kitchen, asked about the photos on the walls, wanted to hear stories about his granddaddy. That child had more soul in his little finger than his parents had in their whole bodies. By February, Terrence was calling every week. Always the same conversation. "Mama, I'm worried about you in that big house all alone. What if something happens? What if you fall and can't get to the phone?" I told him I had one of those life alert buttons. I told him Juanita checked on me daily. I told him I was fine. But he wouldn't let it go. In March, they showed up unannounced. Pulled up in their fancy Lexus on a Saturday afternoon while I was getting ready for choir practice. "We need to talk, Mama," Terrence said, and his voice had this edge to it I'd never heard before. They sat me down in my own living room, the room where Franklin and I had watched Terrence take his first steps, and laid it all out. "You're getting older," Vanessa started, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We just want what's best for you." "We think you should come stay with us," Terrence added. "Just temporarily. Just until we figure out the best long-term solution." I asked what kind of long-term solution they meant. That's when Vanessa pulled out a folder. Inside was a real estate listing. My house, with an estimated value of $425,000. The neighborhood had gotten nice over the years. Real nice. "If you signed the house over to us," Terrence explained, not quite meeting my eyes, "we could sell it and use that money to put you in a really good assisted living facility. One of those nice ones with activities and medical care on site." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "I don't need assisted living. I'm perfectly capable of—" "Are you though, Mama?" Vanessa interrupted. "You're 72. You live alone. Anything could happen." "Plus," Terrence added, leaning forward, "think about what you could leave for Carter. If we invest that money right, it could pay for his college, set him up for life." They had it all planned out. Every word rehearsed. I told them no, told them I wasn't going anywhere. That house was mine and Franklin's, and I'd die before I let it go. Terrence's face got hard then. "Don't be difficult, Mama. We're trying to help you." "Help me right out of my own home," I said quietly. They left angry that day. Didn't even say goodbye. Just peeled out of my driveway fast enough to leave rubber on the street. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. But 2 weeks later, Juanita called me in a panic. She'd run into Terrence at the grocery store, and he'd told her I was having memory problems. Said I'd been getting confused, forgetting things, and that the family was concerned about early-stage dementia. That lying snake. I'd never been sharper in my life. Then Reverend Palmer from the church pulled me aside after service, asked if everything was okay, said Terrence had called him worried about my declining health. That's when I understood. They were building a case, spreading rumors, setting up a narrative that I was incompetent, that I needed someone to take over my affairs. I called a lawyer, Maurice Henderson, a good man from the church who'd helped Franklin with our will, told him everything. "Mrs. Washington," he said carefully, "have you signed anything? Any papers giving them power of attorney?" "No," I said firmly, "and I don't intend to." "Good. Keep it that way. And document everything. Every conversation, every visit. You might need it." I started keeping a journal after that, writing down every phone call, every guilt trip, every manipulation. But then Terrence showed up with an ambulance. It was a Thursday morning. I was sitting on my porch drinking coffee when I heard the sirens. They pulled right up to my house, and Terrence climbed out of his car behind them. "Mama called me confused and disoriented," he told the paramedics. "I'm worried she might have had a stroke." I was so shocked I couldn't even speak at first. The paramedics came up on my porch asking me questions. Did I know what day it was? Who was the president? Could I count backwards from 100? I answered every single one, sharp as a tack, and stared daggers at my son the whole time. "Ma'am, you seem fine to us," the lead paramedic finally said. Terrence looked furious. "I know what I heard on the phone," he insisted. "She wasn't making sense." "I never called you," I said, my voice cold. "I haven't called you in 2 weeks." The paramedics left, but Terrence didn't. He followed me inside, and this time there was no pretense of concern. "You're being selfish, Mama," he said. "That house is worth almost $500,000. That's Carter's future. That's our financial security. That's my home, I shot back. Your daddy and I worked ourselves to the bone for that house. Daddy's dead, Terrence said flatly, and you can't take it with you. I felt something break inside me then. Not my resolve, that was stronger than ever. But something else. The last bit of hope I had that my son was still the boy I'd raised, the one who used to help his daddy in the garden and say grace before every meal. That boy was gone. In his place was this stranger who looked at me and saw nothing but a dollar sign. The next day, Vanessa called. Her voice was different, softer, apologetic. Mama Willa, I'm so sorry about yesterday. Terrence was out of line, we both were. Please, let us make it up to you. Come stay with us for a week. Just a week. Let us take care of you, show you we really do care. I should have said no. I should have hung up that phone and never looked back. But somewhere deep down, some foolish part of me still hoped. Hoped that maybe they really did care. Hoped that maybe we could fix this. So I said yes. I packed a bag and locked up my house. Juanita made me promise to call her every day. Maurice, the lawyer, gave me his cell number and made me swear I wouldn't sign anything without calling him first. I'll be fine, I told them. It's just a week. I was so wrong. The first 2 days were fine. Pleasant, even. Vanessa cooked nice meals. Terrence asked about my day. Carter showed me his Lego creations and told me about school, but on the third day, papers appeared on the kitchen table. Just look them over, Terrence said casually, like he was asking me to check a grocery list. It's just a power of attorney. In case of emergencies. I'm not signing anything, I said. His smile got tight. We're not asking you to sign it today. Just read it over. Think about it. Every day after that, those papers appeared somewhere new. On my nightstand, on the bathroom counter, slipped into the book I was reading. And every day, the pressure increased. You're being unreasonable, Vanessa would say. You're being stubborn, Terrence would add. Think about Carter, they'd both say. But when I looked at Carter, I saw something in his eyes that his parents were too blind to see. Fear, confusion, shame. That child knew what they were doing was wrong. By day 5, I told them I wanted to go home. Terrence said his car was in the shop. Vanessa said she had to work. There was always an excuse. I wasn't a guest anymore. I was a prisoner. On day 6, I woke up to find they'd taken my phone. Terrence claimed I'd left it downstairs and he'd put it somewhere safe, but he wouldn't tell me where. That night, Carter snuck into my room and handed me his old tablet. The Wi-Fi password is Carter 2014, he whispered. Grandma, please be careful. I heard them talking. They said they're running out of time. Time for what, baby? I asked. He just shook his head and left, but the fear in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. I used that tablet to text Juanita. Told her I was okay, but to be ready. I didn't know for what, but I knew something was coming. The next morning, this morning, Vanessa came into my room with that cup of tea. Special blend, she said, her smile razor sharp. It'll help you relax. Help you think more clearly about what's best for everyone. And that's when my tablet buzzed with Carter's warning. Now I'm sitting in Terrence's living room, watching my son and his wife clean up spilled tea and whisper angry accusations at each other, knowing that my 10-year-old grandson just saved my life. The question is, what do I do now? Vanessa stormed off to their bedroom, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Terrence stood in the middle of the living room, staring at that tea stain like it had personally betrayed him. Then he turned to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I think you should go lie down, Mama, he said quietly. You look tired. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a warning. I stood up slowly, my knees shaking, and made my way down the hall to the guest room. As I passed Carter's door, it was cracked open just an inch. I could see him sitting on his bed, still holding that tablet, and when our eyes met, he pressed one finger to his lips. Be quiet. Be careful. Be ready. I nodded and kept walking. Inside the guest room, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to stop my hands from shaking. That tea. They'd put something in that tea. If Carter hadn't warned me, if I'd drunk it. I looked around the room, really looked, and noticed for the first time that there was no lock on the door. The window had a child safety latch that couldn't open more than 4 inches, and my phone was still missing. I wasn't in a guest room. I was in a cell. And somewhere in this house, my son and his wife were deciding what to do with the grandmother who wouldn't cooperate. Outside my door, I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, getting closer. Then Vanessa's voice, cold and clear. We can't wait anymore, Terrence. Tomorrow morning we do this the hard way. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every creak of the house, every footstep in the hallway made my heart jump into my throat. I kept thinking about that tea, about what might have been in it. Something to make me drowsy? Confused? Something worse? Around 3 a.m, I heard Carter's door open. Soft footsteps padded down the hallway and stopped outside my room. A folded piece of paper slid under the door. I waited until the footsteps retreated, then grabbed it. The note was in Carter's careful handwriting. Grandma, I recorded everything, the tea, their conversation after. It's on my tablet. I'm going to upload it to the cloud before they can delete it. Dad checks my tablet every night at 8 p.m. Mom has your phone in her purse. They're taking you somewhere tomorrow at 10 a.m. I heard them call it Serenity Oaks. I'm scared. Love, Carter. Serenity Oaks. I'd heard of that place. It was a psychiatric facility about an hour outside Charlotte, the kind of place where they could hold you for evaluation for 72 hours. The kind of place where a confused elderly woman might sign anything just to get out. My hands shook as I held that note. They were going to have me committed, tomorrow morning. And once I was in there, drugged up and disoriented, they'd get me to sign whatever they wanted. I had maybe 7 hours to figure a way out of this. Using Carter's tablet, I opened a browser and searched for Maurice Henderson's law office. Found his emergency number and typed out a text, my fingers clumsy on the unfamiliar screen. Maurice, this is Willa Mae Washington. I'm being held at my son's house in Charlotte against my will. They tried to drug me tonight and plan to take me to Serenity Oaks Psychiatric Facility tomorrow at 10 a.m. for forced commitment. Please help. They have my phone. I'm using my grandson's tablet. I added the address and hit send, then immediately deleted the message from the tablet's history. If Terrence checked it before Carter could upload that recording, I couldn't leave any evidence. The response came back in less than 5 minutes. Mrs. Washington, do not let them take you anywhere. I'm contacting authorities now and driving up from Atlanta. Stay in your room with the door barricaded if possible. Help is coming. Do you feel you're in immediate physical danger? I typed back. Not yet, but they're desperate. My grandson is helping me. He has evidence recorded. Tell him to send it to this email immediately. Maurice sent an email address. And Mrs. Washington, you're going to be okay. Hold on until morning. I knocked softly on Carter's door. 3 gentle taps, quiet enough that his parents wouldn't hear. He opened it immediately, like he'd been waiting by the door. Baby, I whispered, can you send that recording to an email address right now? His eyes went wide, but he nodded. Smart boy, he'd already uploaded it to his cloud account. It took him less than 2 minutes to forward everything to Maurice's email. Every second felt like an hour, both of us listening for footsteps, for Terrence or Vanessa waking up. When it was done, Carter looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Grandma, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I heard them planning this for weeks. I thought maybe they'd change their minds. They're my parents. I pulled him into a hug, this brave little boy who'd saved my life. Don't you apologize for 1 second. You did exactly right. You hear me? You're the hero of this whole mess. What's going to happen? He asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. The truth is going to come out, I said. And the truth always sets things right, one way or another. I wish I'd believed that as confidently as I said it. Back in my room, I pushed the dresser against the door. It wasn't much, but it would buy me a few seconds if they tried to force their way in. Then I sat on the bed and waited for morning. At 7 a.m., I heard voices in the kitchen, Terrence and Vanessa arguing in harsh whispers. "She didn't drink enough of it," Vanessa was saying. "That's why we're having to do this the hard way." "You said 1 cup would be enough to make her compliant," Terrence shot back. "I said it should be enough, but your mother has the constitution of a damn ox. We should have used 2 packets. Packets? They'd put something in that tea from packets. I felt sick. "Well, it's too late now," Terrence said. "Dr. Pemberton is expecting us at 10. He said as long as we document erratic behavior and I sign as next of kin, he can hold her for the full 72 hours. "And you're sure he'll go through with it?" Vanessa asked. "He owes me," Terrence replied. "I handled his malpractice case last year, kept it out of court. He knows what I did for him. He'll do this." My son, my baby boy, had grown up to be a lawyer who would blackmail a doctor into falsely committing his own mother. I heard footsteps coming down the hall. "Mama?" Terrence knocked on my door. "Mama, why is this dresser pushed against the door?" I didn't answer. "Mama, we need to talk to you. We have an appointment this morning." "I'm not going anywhere with you," I called out, keeping my voice steady. "I know what you're planning." Silence. Then Vanessa's voice, sweet as poisoned honey. "Mama Willa, you're confused. We just want to take you to see a doctor, get you checked out after that dizzy spell last night." "I didn't have a dizzy spell. You tried to drug me." More silence. When Terrence spoke again, his voice was cold. "Mama, you're being paranoid. This is exactly why we need to get you evaluated. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking perfectly clear," I said. "Clear enough to know you've been lying to people about me having dementia. Clear enough to know you called an ambulance when I never called you. Clear enough to know you took my phone and won't let me leave." "This is for your own good," Vanessa said. "You'll understand later." "Open this door right now," Terrence demanded. "I'm not asking, Mama. Open it." "No." I heard him take a deep breath, then his footsteps retreating. Vanessa followed, and I heard them arguing again in their bedroom. At 8:15, my barricade worked better than I thought. I heard Terrence trying to force the door, but the dresser held. At 8:30, he stopped trying. At 9:00, I heard a car pull up outside, then another, then voices, official-sounding voices. Through the window with its child safety latch, I could see police cars in the driveway. "Thank you, Maurice." "Mr. Hayes?" I heard an officer say. "I'm Officer Rodriguez with Charlotte Mecklenburg PD. We received a report of possible elder abuse and unlawful restraint at this address." "This is a family matter," Terrence said, but I could hear the panic in his voice. "My mother is elderly and confused, and we're trying to help her." "Sir, we need to speak with your mother directly. Where is she?" "She's locked herself in a room. She's having an episode." "Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside." I heard footsteps coming down the hall, and this time it was Officer Rodriguez knocking on my door. "Mrs. Washington? This is the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. Are you in there? Are you safe?" "Yes," I called out. "Yes, I'm here. They took my phone and won't let me leave. They tried to drug me last night. My grandson has it all recorded." "Can you move away from the door, ma'am? We're going to need you to come out so we can assess the situation." I pushed the dresser away and opened the door. There were 2 officers in the hallway, and behind them I could see Terrence and Vanessa, their faces pale with shock and rage. "Mrs. Washington, are you hurt?" Officer Rodriguez asked gently. "No, but I would have been if I'd drunk that tea last night." "That's absurd," Vanessa burst out. "She's delusional." "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to be quiet," the other officer said firmly. "Mrs. Washington, Can you tell us what happened?" So I did. Standing there in my son's hallway, I told those officers everything. About the pressure to sign over my house, about the fake ambulance call, about being brought here under false pretenses and having my phone taken, about the tea and Carter's warning. "She's making this up," Terrence insisted. "She has dementia." "Do I sound like I have dementia?" I asked, looking him straight in the eye. "Do I seem confused to you, officer?" Officer Rodriguez was watching Terrence and Vanessa carefully. "Where is this grandson who supposedly has recordings?" Carter appeared in his doorway, still in his pajamas, holding his tablet. "I'm right here. I have everything. I'll show you." "Carter, get back in your room," Vanessa snapped. "This doesn't concern you." "Actually, ma'am, if he has evidence, it very much concerns him," Officer Rodriguez said. "Son, can you show me what you have?" Carter pulled up the recording. The audio was crystal clear, Vanessa handing me the tea, me spilling it, and then their conversation after. Every word. "We can't wait anymore. Tomorrow morning, we do this the hard way." And then, even more damning, the conversation from this morning about the packets, about Dr. Pemberton, about the 72-hour hold. Officer Rodriguez's face got hard as stone. "Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Hayes, I'm going to need you both to come down to the station with us to answer some questions. Mrs. Washington, do you have somewhere safe you can go?" "My lawyer is on his way from Atlanta," I said. "Maurice Henderson." "I know Maurice," Officer Rodriguez said with a slight smile. "Good man. Mrs. Washington, we're going to need you to come give a statement as well. But you're free to wait for your lawyer, if you'd prefer." "These are false accusations," Terrence was saying, his lawyer voice coming out. "You can't just remove us from our own home." "Sir, we have evidence of attempted drugging and conspiracy to commit false imprisonment. We absolutely can bring you in for questioning. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do we need to make this official?" I watched my son's face crumble. Watched him realize that his perfect plan had fallen apart because of a 10-year-old boy with a tablet and a grandmother who'd raised him better than he'd turned out. "What about Carter?" I asked suddenly. "He can't stay here alone." "I want to stay with Grandma," Carter said quickly. "Please, can I go with her?" Vanessa started to protest, but Officer Rodriguez held up a hand. "Given the circumstances, and the fact that the child provided crucial evidence of a crime, I think it's best if he stays with a relative until this is sorted out. Unless you'd prefer we call Child Protective Services?" Vanessa's mouth snapped shut. "Pack a bag, baby," I told Carter. "You're coming with your grandma." By the time Maurice arrived at 11 a.m., Terrence and Vanessa had been taken to the station for questioning. Carter and I were sitting in the living room with a victim advocate, and I'd gotten my phone back from Vanessa's purse. The messages from Juanita were frantic. She'd been calling all morning. Maurice looked 10 years older as he hugged me. "Willa May, thank God you're okay. When I got your message last night, I thought—" He stopped, too emotional to continue. "I'm fine," I assured him. "Better than fine. I'm free." "What happens now?" Carter asked quietly. He'd been so brave through everything, but now he just looked like a scared little kid. Maurice knelt down to his level. "Now, young man, you become the most important witness in this case. What you did, recording that evidence, getting it to safety, protecting your grandmother, that was incredibly brave. But it also means things are going to get complicated for a while." "Will my parents go to jail?" Carter asked, and I heard the conflict in his voice. He loved them, even after everything. That's the hardest part about family betrayal. You can't just turn off the love, even when they don't deserve it. "I don't know yet," Maurice said honestly. "But I do know that what they did was very serious. They'll face consequences." We stayed in Charlotte for 3 more days while the investigation unfolded. The police searched the house and found the packets Vanessa had mentioned, over-the-counter sleeping pills, crushed up. They found the papers Terrence had prepared, including a forged power of attorney that just needed my signature. They found emails between Terrence and Dr. Pemberton, laying out the whole plan. Dr. Pemberton lost his medical license. Terrence faced disbarment proceedings and criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud and elder abuse. Vanessa was charged as an accomplice. But the thing that broke me wasn't the legal proceedings. It was the other things we found. They'd already had my house appraised, already contacted a real estate agent, already picked out the assisted living facility they were going to put me in, the cheapest one they could find, not the nice one they'd promised. The difference between the house sale and the facility costs was going to go straight into their pockets, almost $350,000. They'd planned it all down to the last detail. My own son had looked at me and seen nothing but dollar signs. On the fourth day, Maurice drove Carter and me back to Atlanta, back to my house on Peachtree Street, where Juanita was waiting on the porch with tears streaming down her face. "Willa Mae Washington, don't you ever scare me like that again," she sobbed, pulling me into a hug. "I won't," I promised. "I'm home now. I'm home." Carter stood on my porch, looking at the house his granddaddy had built. The garden where I'd taught Terrence to pull weeds when he was just a little boy. Younger than Carter was now. "Grandma?" he asked. "Can I really stay with you?" "For as long as you need, baby," I said. "This is your home now." That night, after Carter was asleep in Terrence's old room, I sat on my porch with Juanita and Maurice and told them everything. Every detail, every moment of fear, every second I'd thought I might not make it out. "The question now," Maurice said carefully, "is what you want to do about custody of Carter. Legally, he's still their child. Once they make bail..." "They'll get him back," I finished, "and they'll punish him for helping me." Maurice nodded grimly. "Unless we can prove he's not safe with them. The recordings help, but family court is complicated." "Then we fight," I said simply. "That boy saved my life. I'm not letting him go back to people who would do what they did. I don't care how long it takes or what it costs." "It might cost everything," Maurice warned. "Then that's what it costs." Juanita squeezed my hand. "You know the church will help. Greater Hope doesn't let its own fight alone." I looked out at my garden, at the tomatoes that needed tending and the collard greens Franklin had loved. I thought about my son, sitting in a jail cell, probably still thinking he'd done nothing wrong. I thought about Vanessa, who'd smiled while handing me poisoned tea. And I thought about Carter, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks, finally safe. This was just the beginning. The custody battle, the criminal trials, the family shame that would follow us all. But I'd survived 72 years on this earth, 47 of them with Franklin by my side. I'd buried the love of my life and kept going. I'd raised a son who'd betrayed me and still found the strength to protect my grandson. I wasn't going to break now. 2 weeks later, I stood in family court with Maurice on one side and Carter holding my hand on the other. Across the aisle, Terrence and Vanessa sat with their own lawyer, both out on bail, both dressed like respectable parents who'd never do anything wrong. The judge was a black woman in her 60s named Judge Althea Morrison. She'd reviewed all the evidence, listened to all the testimony, watched the recordings Carter had made. Now she looked at my grandson, this brave little boy who'd saved his grandmother's life, and asked him the question that would decide everything. "Carter, knowing everything that's happened, where do you want to live?" He didn't hesitate. "With my grandma. Please, Your Honor. I want to stay with Grandma Willa." Vanessa started crying. Terrence stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Judge Morrison took off her glasses and looked at all of us, this broken, twisted family that had torn itself apart over money and greed. "I've been a judge for 23 years, she said. "I've seen a lot of terrible things. But I've rarely seen something as calculated and cruel as what was done to Mrs. Washington. Mr. Hayes, you should be ashamed. You're a lawyer. You know the law, and you chose to use your knowledge to victimize your own mother." Terrence's lawyer started to speak, but Judge Morrison held up her hand. "I'm not finished. Mrs. Hayes, you participated in a scheme to drug an elderly woman and have her falsely committed. You showed no remorse, no concern for the trauma you were inflicting. You were willing to destroy your husband's mother for money." She turned to Carter. "Young man, what you did took courage most adults don't have. You stood up to your own parents to protect someone you love. That's heroic. But it's also a terrible burden for a 10-year-old to carry." Then she looked at me. "Mrs. Washington, you've been through an ordeal that would break most people. The question before this court is whether you're capable of taking on the responsibility of raising a 10-year-old child at 72 years old." My heart stopped. Was she going to say no? Was she going to send Carter back to them? "Having reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, and the psychiatric evaluation of all parties involved," Judge Morrison continued, "I'm granting temporary custody of Carter Hayes to his grandmother, Willa Mae Washington, for a period of 6 months, at which time we'll reconvene to determine permanent custody arrangements." Carter's hand squeezed mine so hard I thought my fingers might break. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, you will have supervised visitation rights, 1 hour per week, supervised by a court-appointed social worker. You are prohibited from discussing the house, finances, or anything related to the criminal case during these visits. Any violation will result in immediate termination of visitation rights. Do you understand?" They both nodded, Vanessa still crying, Terrence still staring into nothing. We walked out of that courtroom, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in months. Carter was safe. He was mine, at least for now. But as we reached Maurice's car, I saw Terrence standing by the courthouse doors. Alone. Vanessa had already left. He looked at me, and for just a second, I saw the little boy I'd raised, the one who'd held my hand crossing the street, the one who'd brought me dandelions from the backyard and called them flowers. "Mama," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. But then I thought about that tea, about his cold voice saying, "Daddy's dead, and you can't take it with you." About the facility he'd picked out, the cheapest one, not the nice one. About the $350,000 he'd been willing to destroy me for. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Terrence," I said quietly. "Sorry doesn't erase what you did, what you were willing to do." "I know," he whispered. "I know. But Mama, please. He's my son. Don't take him from me." "You did this," I said. "You made these choices. Now you have to live with them." I got in the car with Carter and Maurice, and we drove away. I didn't look back. That was 3 months ago. Now Carter goes to school at the same elementary school Terrence went to. He's in the church youth choir. He helps me in the garden on weekends. Every Sunday after service, the church ladies bring by casseroles and ask how we're doing. Juanita comes by every Wednesday, same as always, except now she brings cookies for Carter too. The supervised visits with Terrence and Vanessa happen every Saturday at a community center. Carter comes home from them quiet and sad, but he goes. He still loves his parents, even after everything. I don't try to change that. Love isn't something you can control or make logical sense of. The criminal trials are still pending. Terrence took a plea deal to avoid prison time, probation, community service, and permanent disbarment. Vanessa's trial is next month. Dr. Pemberton already pleaded guilty and lost everything. And me? I'm still here in my house on Peachtree Street. The house Franklin and I built a life in. The house my son tried to steal. The house that's now a home for a 10-year-old boy who needed somewhere safe to land. Some people from the church ask me if I'll ever forgive Terrence. I don't know how to answer that. How do you forgive someone for looking at you and seeing nothing but an obstacle to money? How do you forgive your own child for being willing to destroy you? Maybe someday, maybe never. Right now, I'm just focused on Carter, on making sure he knows he's loved and safe and that what his parents did wasn't his fault. The permanent custody hearing is in 3 months. Maurice says we have a strong case, but nothing's guaranteed. There's always a chance the judge could decide that Carter belongs with his parents. That rehabilitation and family counseling could fix what's broken. I don't sleep well on the nights I think about that possibility. But tonight, right now, Carter's in the kitchen helping me make Franklin's favorite pecan pie. He's got flour on his face and he's laughing at something silly, and for this moment, everything is okay. The doorbell rings, and I wipe my hands on my apron, expecting Juanita or maybe someone from the church. But when I open the door, it's Vanessa. She's alone. She's not supposed to be here. This violates the court order, and she's holding an envelope with my name on it. "We need to talk," she says, pushing past me into my house. "About the custody hearing." Carter appears in the kitchen doorway, his face going pale. "Mom?" "Stay in the kitchen, baby," I tell him. "Call Maurice, right now." Vanessa's smile is sharp and cold. "You really thought you'd won, didn't you, Willa? You thought you could take my son and face no consequences?" She opens the envelope and pulls out papers, photographs, bank statements. "Did you know your precious Maurice has been skimming from the church building fund? No? Well, now you do. And if you don't drop this custody case, if you don't give Carter back and sign over that damn house, these go to the police. Maurice goes to prison. Your church loses everything, and you lose the only lawyer willing to fight for you." My heart drops. "You're lying." Am I? She spreads the papers on my coffee table. "Look for yourself. It's all there. And before you think about fighting this, remember, I have nothing left to lose. Terrence took a plea deal. I'm looking at prison time. But if I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me." She leans close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You have 24 hours to decide. Drop the custody case and sign over the house, or I destroy everyone you love. Your lawyer, your church, your grandson's future. Choose wisely, Grandma Willa." She walks out, leaving the papers on my table and the smell of her perfume in the air like poison. Carter stands in the kitchen doorway, tears streaming down his face. And I realize this nightmare isn't over. It's only just beginning. I stood frozen in my living room, staring at those papers spread across my coffee table like accusations. Carter was still in the kitchen doorway, his face wet with tears, and I could hear him breathing too fast, the way he did when he was about to have a panic attack. "Carter, baby, look at me," I said, turning away from those papers. "Look at Grandma." He met my eyes, and I walked over to him, took his face in my hands. "Breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's right. Again." We breathed together until his breathing slowed, until the panic left his eyes. Then I pulled him into a hug and said the words I needed him to hear. "We are not giving up. You hear me? We are not letting them win." "But Grandma," he whispered, "what if Mr. Maurice really did?" "Then we'll deal with it," I said firmly. "But something tells me your mama is lying, again. Because that's what desperate people do when they're cornered. They lie." I picked up my phone and called Maurice. He answered on the first ring. "Willa May?" Carter called, said Vanessa showed up. "She's trying to blackmail me," I said. "Says she has evidence you've been stealing from the church building fund. Says if I don't drop the custody case and sign over my house, she'll go to the police." There was a long silence. Then Maurice laughed. Actually laughed. "That woman is something else," he said. "Willa May, I don't handle the church building fund. Never have. Reverend Palmer and the finance committee do." Vanessa just made up the most convincing lie she could think of and hoped you'd be too scared to check. Relief flooded through me. "So it's fake? All of it?" "All of it. But here's the thing. Her showing up at your house alone, threatening you, violating the court order, that's real, That's very real, and it's going to cost her everything. What do we do? You call the police right now and report the violation. I'm calling Judge Morrison's clerk to file an emergency motion. Vanessa just handed us the final nail for her coffin. 20 minutes later, Officer Rodriguez was back at my house, taking photos of the fake evidence Vanessa had left behind, taking my statement. An hour after that, a warrant was issued for Vanessa's arrest for violating a court order and attempted extortion. They picked her up at a hotel in Buckhead. She'd been so confident in her blackmail scheme that she'd checked in under her own name, probably planning to celebrate once I caved. Instead, she spent the night in jail. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the next morning. Judge Morrison was not happy. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, her voice cold enough to freeze water, "you violated a direct court order. You went to the home of the woman you conspired to drug and imprison, and you attempted to blackmail her into giving up custody of your son. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Vanessa's new lawyer, her third one, the others had dropped her, stood up. "Your Honor, my client was desperate. She misses her son. She made a poor decision." "A poor decision?" Judge Morrison's voice could have cut glass. "Counselor, your client committed multiple crimes. She violated a protective order. She attempted extortion. She fabricated evidence to blackmail a witness. That's not a poor decision. That's a pattern of criminal behavior." She turned back to Vanessa. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm revoking your visitation rights entirely pending the outcome of your criminal trial. You are to have no contact with your son, your mother-in-law, or any witnesses in this case. If you violate this order, you will be held in contempt and jailed immediately. Do you understand?" Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no pity. Just relief that Carter wouldn't have to see her again until she got the help she needed. If she ever did. The permanent custody hearing was moved up to 2 weeks later, given the new circumstances. Maurice said we had the strongest case possible now, but I still couldn't sleep the night before. What if the judge decided blood was thicker than evidence? What if she sent Carter back anyway? The morning of the hearing, I put on my best Sunday dress, the purple one Franklin had loved, and Carter wore the suit we'd bought together at Macy's. He looked so grown up, so brave, but I could see his hands shaking as we walked into the courthouse. Greater Hope Baptist had shown up in force. Reverend Palmer was there, Juanita, the whole choir, the deacons. Even Sister Ernestine, who was 94 and hadn't left her house in 2 years, was sitting in the back row with her walker. They'd come to support us, to show the judge that Carter had a whole community ready to love him and protect him. Terrence sat on the other side of the courtroom, alone. Vanessa was still in jail, her bail revoked after the blackmail attempt. He looked smaller somehow, like he'd shrunk in on himself. Judge Morrison entered and we all stood. She looked around the courtroom, taking in the crowd from Greater Hope, and something softened in her expression. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to acknowledge the community support I'm seeing here today. It speaks volumes about the kind of environment young Carter would have with his grandmother." She reviewed the case file, the new evidence, Vanessa's latest crimes. Then she called Carter to the stand. "Carter," she said gently, "I know you've been asked this before, but I need to ask again, especially given everything that's happened. Where do you want to live?" Carter looked at his father. Terrence was crying now, silent tears running down his face. "I love my dad," Carter said quietly. "I do, but I don't feel safe with him anymore. He knew what Mom was doing to Grandma, and he helped her. He was going to let it happen." "Do you feel safe with your grandmother?" Judge Morrison asked. "Yes, ma'am. Grandma makes me feel like I matter, like I'm not just in the way. She helps me with my homework and teaches me to cook and takes me to church. She tells me stories about my granddaddy. She makes me feel like family." "And you don't feel like family with your parents?" Carter's voice broke. "I felt like a tool, like they only wanted me around when I could help them get what they wanted. When I tried to protect Grandma, Mom said I betrayed them. But how is protecting someone you love a betrayal? Judge Morrison took off her glasses and wiped her own eyes. In 23 years on the bench, this child had broken through her professional distance. Carter, thank you for your honesty. You can step down. She called me next, asked me about my health, my finances, my ability to care for a 10-year-old at my age. Your Honor, I said, I'm 72 years old. I won't lie and say I have the energy I did at 30, but I have something more important than energy. I have love. I have patience. I have a whole community behind me. And I have 47 years of marriage to a good man who taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about sacrifice. It's about putting someone else first. I looked at Terrence. I raised my son to be better than this. I failed somewhere along the way, and I have to live with that. But I won't fail Carter. I won't let him grow up thinking that love is conditional, that family is about money, that elderly people are disposable. I'll teach him what Franklin taught me, that integrity matters, that character matters, that how you treat people when they can't do anything for you, that's who you really are. Mrs. Washington, Judge Morrison said, if I grant you permanent custody, Mr. Hayes will still be Carter's father. He'll still have rights. Are you prepared to facilitate a relationship between them if and when Mr. Hayes demonstrates that he's addressed his issues? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Could I let Terrence back into Carter's life after everything he'd done? If he does the work, I said finally, if he gets counseling, if he proves he's changed, if Carter wants a relationship with him, then yes. Because that's what's best for Carter. Not my anger, not my hurt. What's best for my grandson. Judge Morrison nodded. Then she called Terrence to the stand. Mr. Hayes, do you have anything to say? Terrence stood up slowly. He looked at Carter, then at me, then down at his hands. I destroyed everything, he said, his voice barely a whisper. My career, my marriage, my relationship with my mother and my son. And for what? For a house? For money I didn't even need? He looked up, met my eyes. Mama, you asked me once when I stopped being the boy you raised. I've been thinking about that. I think it was gradual, little compromises, little justifications. I'd see houses in nice neighborhoods and think, I deserve that. I'd see colleagues with vacation homes and think, why not me? And somewhere along the way, I started believing that what I wanted mattered more than what was right. He turned to Carter. Son, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You did the right thing, warning Grandma. You were braver at 10 than I've been my whole adult life, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I hope someday you can understand that I loved you, even when I was making terrible choices. I just loved money more, and that's the most shameful thing I've ever had to admit. Carter was crying. I was crying. Half the courtroom was crying. Judge Morrison took a long moment, studying all of us. Then she spoke. I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen parents lose their children to addiction, to abuse, to neglect. I've seen children traumatized by the very people who were supposed to protect them. And I've learned that blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Sacrifice does. Showing up does. She looked at her notes one more time. Mr. Hayes, you have demonstrated insight into your failures. That's a start. But insight isn't change. Change takes time, work, and consistent action. Your son needs stability. He needs safety. He needs to know that the adults in his life put his well-being above their own desires. Mrs. Washington, you have demonstrated exactly that. You've opened your home to your grandson despite the trauma his parents inflicted on you. You've put his needs first. You've provided him with a stable, loving environment and a community of support. She picked up her gavel. Therefore, it is the order of this court that permanent custody of Carter Hayes is granted to his grandmother, Willa Mae Washington. Mr. Hayes, You will have supervised visitation rights to be reevaluated in 1 year based on completion of family therapy and demonstration of lasting change. Mrs. Hayes will have no visitation rights until she completes her sentence and undergoes court-mandated therapy. The gavel came down, and it was done. Carter was mine. Legally. Permanently. Mine. He launched himself into my arms, and we both sobbed. The good kind of tears, the kind that wash away pain and leave room for joy. The church folks erupted in celebration. Reverend Palmer was praising God. Sister Ernestine was shouting hallelujah. Juanita was hugging everyone in reach. Across the courtroom, Terrence sat alone, watching his son celebrate a life without him. And I saw it then. Real remorse. Real understanding of what he'd lost. Maybe someday we'd rebuild something. Maybe Carter would want a relationship with his father again. Maybe Terrence would do the work and become the man he should have been all along. But today wasn't about maybes. Today was about the definite, certain, legal fact that Carter was safe. That I had won. That we had won. Outside the courthouse, Maurice pulled me aside. "Willamay, there's one more thing. Vanessa pleaded guilty this morning to all charges. She's looking at 3 years in prison. And Terrence? His probation continues, but the judge added a requirement that he complete 50 hours of community service at an elder care facility. She wants him to see what he almost did to you." I nodded. It seemed fitting. That night, we had a celebration dinner at my house. The dining room table that hadn't been full since Franklin died was overflowing with people and food. Reverend Palmer said grace, thanking God for justice and mercy and second chances. Sister Ernestine told stories about when she was young. The youth choir kids played with Carter in the backyard, and I sat on my porch with Juanita as the sun went down, watching my grandson laugh with his friends, watching my community love on this child who needed it so desperately. "You did it," Juanita said softly. "You saved him." "He saved me first," I replied. "That text message, if he hadn't sent it, I'd have drunk that tea. I'd have ended up in that facility. They'd have gotten my house, and Carter would have grown up thinking that's just how family works." "What are you going to do with the house?" she asked. "You could still sell it, you know. Move somewhere smaller. Take it easy." I looked at my home, at the porch Franklin built, at the garden where we'd planted roots, literal and metaphorical, at the rooms where Carter was building new memories to replace the ones his parents had tainted. "I'm going to live in it," I said simply. "I'm going to love my grandson in it. I'm going to grow old in it. And when I die, Carter will inherit it, not because it's worth money, but because it's worth memories. Good ones, the kind that heal." 3 months later, Terrence came for his first supervised visit. He brought Carter a gift, a photo album filled with pictures of Franklin, pictures I'd never seen before, ones Terrence had kept. "I wanted him to know his granddaddy," Terrence said quietly. "The way he really was. Not the sanitized version. The real man who made mistakes and learned from them. Who worked hard and loved his family. Who was better than I turned out to be." Carter took the album and hugged his father. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. And that's all any of us get, really. Starts, chances, moments to choose differently. Now it's been a year. Carter's 11 in the 6th grade and taller than me already. He's in the youth choir and on the basketball team. He still helps me in the garden on Saturdays, still makes me laugh with his jokes and observations about the world. Terrence completed his therapy and community service. He's working as a paralegal now. Couldn't practice law anymore, but found a way to still use his skills. He sees Carter twice a month, supervised visits that have slowly gotten less awkward. They're building something new, something honest. Vanessa got out on parole after 18 months for good behavior. She moved to Florida, made no attempt to contact Carter. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe she needed to lose everything to find herself. Maybe she never will. I don't know what happens next. None of us do. But I know this house is full of life again. I know my grandson is safe and loved. I know my community stood by me when my own blood betrayed me. And I know that every time I sit on this porch with a cup of tea, real tea, the kind I make myself, I remember that moment, that text message, that brave little boy who saved his grandma's life. "Don't drink the tea," he wrote. But really, what he was saying was, "I see you. I love you. I won't let them hurt you." And that's what family is supposed to be. Not the blood that shares your DNA, but the people who show up, who protect you, who love you when you're vulnerable. Carter comes out on the porch now, holding 2 plates of the pecan pie we made together. "Grandma," he says, handing me one, "do you think Granddaddy Franklin would be proud of us?" I think about my husband, about the man who taught me to stand up straight and speak truth, about the man who would have been heartbroken by his son's betrayal but overjoyed by his grandson's courage. "Baby," I say, pulling Carter close, "I think he's been proud of us this whole time." We eat our pie and watch the sun set over Peachtree Street, over the house that almost became my prison but became our sanctuary instead, over the home we've built from the broken pieces of betrayal, and it is beautiful. Thank you for staying with us through this journey. Please subscribe for more stories and drop a comment. We read every single one.